Left in Kentucky, the podcast of Indivisible, Northern Kentucky. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good day, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Left in Kentucky. We're here with your host, Roberto Enriquez, and
Amy Ferguson, and who can tell what time of day it is anymore, right?
Right. And Ann Dickerson, my new normal. I saw somebody today on social media said the new normal is, waking up at 12 and going, oh, damn, it's 4. And I'm thinking to myself, heck, I'd wake up at 4 and think, oh, damn, it's 8.
Oh, too funny. So yeah, we're with you now on our weekly basis. So since we all have a little more time at home on our hands these days, with the quarantine and the stay-at-home order or whatever we're calling it these days, hope everybody out there is well and safe and staying healthy,
and at home,
and not congregating. Where you're not supposed to. We don't want to make Dad upset with us. So none of us wants to disappoint Andy. So I do have to say the memes about Andy Bashir some of them are truly amazing out there. There's a whole Facebook page devoted to memes about Andy Bashir now. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. So anyway,
that group has exploded.
I know. It's hilarious.
Exploded. There are over 175,000 people in that group.
It's great. It's great.
People need brevity.
I think
for sure.
Well, and he's the voice that a lot of people want in leadership right now. That calm. Like we talked about in our Bullhorn last episode, that calm, we're in this together, we're going to make it. Yeah, there's some tough things and here's here's what we need to do. But we're in this together and we're going to make it. I think people crave that in a time of crisis. And
oh yeah,
he's one of the few leaders out there providing it.
I listen every day at 5 for sure.
Yeah. So
if I can.
So anyway, as we usually do, we'll start with our cow patties, one of our favorite segments. See, I like just playing the noise because the noise just makes Ann laugh. So
it's pretty realistic.
Well, I can't help it. It just does. It makes me crack up every time.
So nothing wrong with that. So I guess I usually hand off the starting every time. So I think this episode I'll start off, and we're going to have to come up with a special award for this person because they are on our list almost every single time. So my cow patty this week goes to Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
And in case you were hiding under a rock somewhere and didn't hear, this week as the government was passing, as the Senate passed the COVID-19 relief bill and it went to the House, not only did Massey decide he wasn't going to vote for it, but he was going to demand a roll call vote and force everybody to come back to Washington, D.C. to vote for it, which is the exact opposite of what we should be trying to do right now instead of bringing everybody together, especially the older, frail part of our country, which seems to be our legislature more and more these days. Most of them are well over 60. So anyway, because of that, Massey gets my cow patty for this week.
Well deserved as usual.
Yep. So who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Alrighty.
So I'm giving my cow patty this week to a segment of our population here in Kentucky that doesn't seem to want to take precautions and take this global pandemic seriously. People are congregating, having house parties and reveling in that, and people are going shopping for social reasons, and it's frankly quite dangerous. We need to start thinking about our hospitals and our capacity, and if you get sick with something besides COVID, good luck getting a bed, because they're all going to be full. So it's not just this we need to worry about. So please, please, please follow the guidelines our governor set out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, people are gathering, and you've got the absolutely insane case of, right, the COVID-19 party that they actually got together and had a party, which now some of them have been diagnosed with COVID-19 as positive. But
imagine that.
Yeah. But you have people that are gathering in state park campgrounds and having gatherings at the campgrounds at the state parks, which of course, if how is that any better than having people at your house?
I know it's.
This Sunday I drove by a church, and there were people in the parking lot going to church and all walking together and standing around talking just like it was any old normal day.
Oh my God.
It's very scary.
Yeah. And if we keep doing that, we're going to see, even in the rural areas, in suburbia, we're going to see the hospitals overflow with victims, and we're going to run out of beds. I think there's this weird situation where, because it's not like a natural disaster where you see, buildings torn up and rubble and, like an earthquake or a tornado or something, it's very visual. I think because there's not that visualness to it, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be real for a lot of people. It's strange.
Right. They just can't go out to eat, and, they can't go get their nails done and things like that. So,
well, that's the one. Some of those are just, they kill me, because at the selfish, self-centered, narcissistic level that you have to be on, that your complaint is that you can't get your nails done while people are dying of an illness. And the fact that level of narcissism is just lost on these people. It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's it leaves me speechless many times. I just shake my head and don't know what to say. So
unfortunately, I think people are just getting bad information. They're not watching the governor every day at 5:00, and they're getting their information from other sources that aren't reliable.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people are going to suffer.
Like the president.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that would be probably number one. I don't know.
After spending so much time talking about how it's, not real, it's just like the flu, and it's not that bad. And, people hear that, and they heard that at the beginning, and that gets, that takes hold in their brain. So.
And who wants to believe this is true? I mean, I don't want to believe it's true. I know it is, but
right.
I'd rather, I guess, not believe it and live in some la la land. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm a bit into technology. People who know me know that. And
just a tad.
Yeah, just a tad. So I've got, since I've been working from home, I've kind of set up my workspace central for not only my homework, but for everything, including recording podcasts and my personal computer and everything. So I have kind of this L-shaped where I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 computers set up. Yeah, 4 computers set up. One of the laptops I've got on all the time on the Johns Hopkins dashboard for COVID-19. If you haven't looked that up, look it up. It's really interesting. The dashboard from Johns Hopkins University.
It's one of my tabs for sure.
Yeah, it's really sobering. It has the visual of how many confirmed cases there are, and it ranks it by country and how many there are in each country, and the total number of deaths and number recovered. And when you see those numbers start skyrocketing on a daily basis, it's really, really sobering. Really is. So.
Math teachers are scared. I'm scared.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a digression, but good cow patty there, Amy. I agree with that one. Miss Ann.
Yeah, mine kind of ties in, which is really funny. It ties in with yours too. My cow patty award goes to the administration of our neighbor directly to the south of us. Specifically Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee. What's really funny is there are these memes that are going up every day and offers from the people of Tennessee for us to trade them so they can have Governor Andy Beshear. And the last one I saw was like, we'll give you Nashville, Dollywood, the Tennessee Titans, because y'all don't have a professional football team.
Nice.
We'll give you all this stuff if we can have Andy Beshear. And everybody in Kentucky's like, no, not happening. But here's the thing. On Twitter, we, of course, are a part of a network of, various groups and individuals kind of united together in what we call the resistance. And so one of the people that we follow and who follows us, the name of it is the Tennessee Holler. And I got to give a shout out to whoever runs that account. Yeah, because I got the information from them where the Tennessee Department of Health was actually put out this paper statement or whatever, encouraging doctors to use alternative things for surgical masks, and they put bandanas, diapers, and layers of tissues and gauze.
Wow. Holy crap.
That's crazy.
But in the meantime, the governor's company, his private business, the Lee Company, is still operating, and they have masks for their employees.
You're kidding.
No, but the health department is telling, hospital staff what potential things they can use as substitutes. And I'm just in awe.
Wow.
In awe. And when
it's
you look
evil.
at, and so, you can see the trajectory because if you are keeping up on this at all, almost daily, there's a map, a graph that goes up that compares the trajectory of the virus in Tennessee versus Kentucky. And we all know that the Tennessee trajectory is way worse.
Yeah.
Andy Beshear has done just almost everything he can, short of calling for a complete state shutdown, a shelter-in-place order.
Yeah, I don't think Tennessee hasn't shut down anything yet, have they?
If they have, it's been very little.
I mean,
I think they
have
finally closed schools, didn't they?
Yeah.
They have by city. So, like, by municipality, basically, they have. So, counties have been shutting down stuff, but the state overall has not. My parents are in Shelby County, which is in Memphis. One of my campaign people is actually in the Nashville area, and then my sister is in the Knoxville area. So they're shutting it down, but not consistently across the board.
And that's our surprise guest for this week, Shannon Fabert, chiming in.
Just saying, I got a lot of folks in Tennessee.
No, that's good. I just hadn't introduced you yet, so now I've introduced you. Surprise!
Well, but what's so funny? I mean, if one thing has gotten me, at least, I think a lot of people, through the craziness of all of this, it is the humor that people try to, invoke. Sometimes in poor taste, sometimes not. And so, one of the sayings that we all laugh about is, Andy Bashir saying, "Now you can't be doing that."
Yeah.
And so there's a meme out of this guy, and at the top it says, "On my way to Tennessee," and it shows a guy driving a car, and it's like one of those memes that has a split screen of 4 different boxes, and so it shows him driving, and then the next box is a billboard on the side of the road with Andy Bashir's face, and it says, "You can't be doing that." And then the bottom 2 boxes show him shifting the car into reverse and turning around.
Nice.
So you see that, and then when you see information like this coming from folks in Tennessee, it's like, well, no wonder.
Yeah.
And some of the worst counties that they have, in terms of results and the trajectory of the coronavirus, are those counties that sit right on Kentucky's southern border.
No, I saw that map yesterday. That was ugly.
Yeah.
It is scary. And, it's a virus that travels through the air. There's no,
Wait, are you suggesting that...
Are you put up a wall to stop it?
Are you suggesting that viruses do not respect state and county boundaries? I'm shocked by that news.
Shocking, I know. Right? Oh, geez. But anyway, so, Bill Lee and his administration, they definitely get my award, because he's not only not protecting his own people, he's willing to risk people in bordering states because he just doesn't care, or he doesn't take it seriously. I don't, at this point, there's enough, logical, reasonable information out there from experts. There's no excuse for anyone not taking this seriously.
Yeah. Well, definitely well-deserved cow patties as usual. And last week we added our bullhorn for kind of shout outs for doing well. And this week, our bullhorn, we're giving a shout out to the Kentucky legislature.
What?
Insert sound effect here. Sorry, I still haven't chosen a bullhorn sound effect. The Kentucky.
Say it isn't so.
I know the Kentucky legislature this week came together and in a bipartisan fashion worked together to quickly pass legislation about over COVID-19, and they deserve a shout out for that. It's the kind of behavior that we need to see more of from our state legislature.
Absolutely. And it's a shame that it took a pandemic to bring the capability out. Yeah.
But fortunately it is coming out, and we hopefully we can build upon that. And I try desperately not to taint the bullhorn by mentioning the fact that they refuse to suspend session until after the stay-at-home orders are rescinded, but to work on all sorts of other legislation, but we'll just ignore that.
This week we will.
Yeah. This week we're very happy to have with us Miss Shannon Fabert, who is running for U.S. Congress here in Kentucky's 4th District against our favorite cow patty winner, Thomas Massey. So we welcome Miss Shannon.
Yay. Hi, Shannon.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for being on.
Yay. Great to have you.
Yeah. So Shannon, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, where to start? Let's see. I am a continuous improvement professional, and started out in operations management a very, very long time ago. I don't want to say how long ago, but still a long time ago. And have worked in a variety of industries, in the energy sector, gaming, manufacturing, transportation and logistics, the whole kit and caboodle, and, have sat down with CEOs and frontline workers to, make things happen for the good. And history on myself, I grew up in Tennessee, and to my parents, I'm the oldest of 4. And, I grew up in a suburban area. My parents actually, I know some of you guys have heard my story, both my parents were recovering drug addicts. And, the one thing that they always put in front of me and my siblings was, education was the great equalizer. And so I'm the product of a public school education through high school and through college. And, got into this whole politics thing largely because I saw somebody who wasn't doing anything for the people. And, I sit here as a Democratic candidate in a primary, largely because I believe Kentucky needs an option that knows how to change things. And so every day, I wake up in my business world looking at how to improve somebody, something, some business. And I think that type of passion is what's needed in Congress for Kentuckians. So I live here in Boone County with my husband and my dog Heinz, whom some of you have met. And, for me, we've been here for 10 years. And for me, it was a matter of now is the time to do something. I think maybe earlier was probably the time to do something, but you throw your name in the hat and you say, let's make positive change. And when I decided to take this run on, the one thing I wanted was for the 4th, in particular, for the Democratic base in the 4th to come out stronger than it was in the last race. And so here I am, and I'm excited to be here with you guys today to talk more about that. And so... Excellent.
Well, good to have you.
Hi, Heinz. Give him a pet for me.
Yeah.
Well, he's staring out the window right now, so I'm fairly certain he's waiting on somebody to walk by.
I'm sure we'll probably get a chance to hear from Heinz at some point during this interview. If anybody out there ever gets a chance to meet Heinz, Heinz is great. So, a great dog. So, love Heinz. Little tiny puppy. Very, very tiny.
Little tiny 94-pound dog.
Yeah, little tiny 94-pound dog. Comes up to my waist. But
he's a lap dog. He's a lap dog.
Yes. So, well, good.
Good boy.
So, I guess let's start off talking about what are a couple of issues that you think are really important right now that kind of make up, the base of your campaign.
So let's talk about the one that I think people kind of miss right now. In particular, we're dealing with the coronavirus, and people are terrified for their own health. We have a healthy at home, shelter in place concepts that are going around, and our governor's done a really great job of honestly preparing us for this when you look at other states. But I think one of the things that is missed, honestly, is our economic stability. And you look at over the years, you look at where Kentucky ranks in that, and I'm concerned. One of my big platform issues is that economic stability, largely around infrastructure. We are in a state where we need roads, we need bridges. Everybody knows about the Brent Spence Bridge here in northern Kentucky. But, what about the rest of the 4th District, which stands from Louisville all the way to Ashland and then even parts of northern Lexington? We should be looking at infrastructure for the 21st century as an economic basis.
I'd I'd be thrilled with infrastructure for the 20th century at this point.
Word.
That's a little scary right there, right? But we look at like 21st century infrastructure. There should be broadband in every crevice of the state, and
yes,
people should be able to work from home. I mean, I am fortunate enough that my company is based in Austin, but I get to work from home being an IT consultant right now, and everybody should have that option. When we look further into that infrastructure, and I'm talking about 21st century energy plans. How do we harness solar and wind in order to create jobs for people right here in Kentucky? Those are all things that, regardless of any pandemic, regardless of any crisis that we might have here in Kentucky, those things are needed now more than ever.
Yeah.
So, economics. So creating economic stability here in Kentucky is huge for me. I think when you go further than that, let's actually talk about, the elephant in the room. It's not even really an elephant in the room. We all know about it. We all know about coronavirus, right?
Never heard of it.
Never, right? But let's talk about the actual effects of healthcare where that is concerned, right? We don't have enough testing right now as is. And so the best thing that we can do is quarantine ourselves. That's not enough, quite frankly. We look at people who've been laid off from their jobs, back to the economic conversation we were just having. Small businesses are being affected by this. But truly, when we look at health, people don't have the money to be able to take, before this actually happened, I had a couple of tweets and a couple of comments and a couple of press releases that were related to people can't take a $500 hit to their savings or to their, to their money, to their bottom line for health crises. And so that's just crazy to me. That's, especially here in Kentucky where, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, they rank number one. Like we rank number one in the country for these things. And that's insane. So we have to do something about the medical crisis. I can't tell you that I have the answers to that, but I do know that one of the things that I do know how to do is I've always been able to bring people to the table. I've always been able to bring people who know those answers to the table so that we could work something out. And so like those are the two that have been weighing heavily on my mind as I talk to people across, the 4th district, of what's really been at, in their hearts. And before this crisis, education, which is huge to me. Education is the great equalizer. And we need our public schools to be stronger than ever right now. I feel terrible for the students right now that are at home that, we look at our teachers and people dump on teachers all the time. We had a governor that did it for quite some time. Thank God we removed him, right?
Yes.
But when you look at education and you look at the public school education, like everybody should have a great public school opportunity. I had a great public school experience. I don't know about y'all, but my teachers were awesome. And I know that teachers are out there trying. They need 21st century infrastructure also, and we have an obligation to our children to leave it better for them than we had it. So, especially right now, there's a lot of parents out there, I believe, that have a newfound respect for teachers right now. A lot of my friends have talked about it. I've seen a lot of memes actually about it recently about, funny memes, but the respect I think that will come out of this for teachers and for what education does, what public school education does, I think is more valuable than what we could talk about. I mean, and right now, including, Boone County, I know, is using the school buses to make sure children are getting fed that, otherwise wouldn't have those 2 meals. So it's time for us to coalesce and to drive home that we are here for everybody right now.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Shonda Rhimes, with what you're talking about education is so hilarious. Shonda Rhimes, for those who may not know, famous for the shows that she brought to television and produces, like Grey's Anatomy. And she actually put on Twitter that after working for an hour with teachers, she firmly believes that teachers should make $1 billion. And you see a lot, especially a lot of famous people, who that was pretty much the sentiment across the board once they did have to start doing this. So I think that hopefully it will bring a whole new perspective to people that they hadn't previously considered.
I don't know if our listeners know, but all three of us, me and Anne and Roberto, were all certified teachers. So we're not teaching right now, but we're all certified.
And in some case, we're also certifiable. So,
well, you've been going through my papers again.
I knew that about y'all already, though.
So excellent. So let's talk a little bit about, so you're running for Congress, and the House is obviously the Democrats are in the majority right now. Senate is still Republican majority. Hopefully we'll be flipping that. But those are different candidates. So working in the House, in a Democratic House, how do you see the need to still reach across to the minority party? And do you have any, strategy behind that, or any ways that you think would be good for reaching across to the minority party? Or do you think that's really not necessarily necessary, and we just stick with, Democrats have the majority in the House, and we use the majority to move ahead?
That's a great and fully loaded question. Thank you there, Roberta. Maybe I did not know enough when I was younger, but I feel as though I remember a time where Democrats and Republicans, it was a title, but it didn't mean that you couldn't reach across the aisle. There has been some great legislation, I believe, in history that has been passed working across the aisle. And when you talk about even what the Gang of Eight was actually about, that was bipartisanship working on different issues. And I think that we need to get back to that. I think we as Americans, as voters, as people that are responsible for each other from a community perspective, we have to get out ideologues. We have to vote them out. Because otherwise we won't be able to have that bipartisanship. So I think that that's absolutely necessary. And I think if you look at this district in particular, we won't flip this district blue without that type of bipartisan help. It is almost a 50-50 split here. And we need somebody who is willing to reach across the aisle on more than one occasion to say, how do we make this work? I feel like I'm uniquely qualified for that because, again, like I said, I've worked with companies sitting down with CEOs and frontline workers to say, how do we make this work? And I'm not the person with the answers. I'm the person that can help facilitate those answers. I have some ideas, but I think every elected official might have ideas, but they also have to know that they are the voice of their people. And that, to me, is probably the most important thing that every single elected official can take away, regardless of whether or not it's Congress, the president, even state or local officials. You're here for more than just the people who voted for you.
Excellent.
That was some weird sounds.
Yeah. Everybody's
motorcycle in the background.
Yep.
I'm not talking about the motorcycle. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
Shannon, you hit the nail on the head with something that's kind of become somewhat of a personal pet peeve of mine. I think that that should be the case, regardless of party affiliation and regardless of whether the party that you belong to is in the majority or the minority. And, we've definitely lost that in our politics. And, I've seen so many discussions. I firmly believe that our politics right now is more divisive than it's ever been, to our detriment and to the shame of a lot of people, from my perspective and in my opinion. You don't see this team building or, like you said, nobody gets what they want 100% of the time. But there's no reason for people who come at an issue from opposite sides, regardless of how extreme the difference is between the two, there's no reason for that to devolve into the kinds of things that we've seen, number one. And there's also no reason for a party that is in the majority to then look at the rest of the people who aren't and say, basically, screw you, we're going to do what we want to do anyway. We see a lot of that happening right now, most especially in the Senate and in, our Kentucky politics, which is a real shame. Because such a huge amount of people are feeling more and more disenfranchised by their government. So I always think we should at least attempt. I don't think any door should be closed. And as you rightfully pointed out, look at, because of knocking on doors, because of having conversations with people, look at the dramatic movement up here in northern Kentucky, county by county.
Yes.
For the governor's race.
Agreed.
You've got to be willing to have those conversations, and you've got to be able to pick the person that makes your blood boil the most and find out a way to talk to them. If you can do that, you can do anything. You can do anything. You have to keep those lines of communication open.
I agree with you, Ann. One of the things that I learned as a consultant in business and sitting in a room where most of the people in the room did not look like me, were not my age, whether that's gender or race. I've always been the minority, but I've still been able to get things done, and the one thing that I've always learned and that I kept with me from my very first job, somebody said to me once, big ships turn slowly. And so when you talk about, you might not get everything that you want, but you got something, that is still progress. And, we look at, some of these bills, even the bill that just passed, the CARES Act was honestly a very flawed act, but it was progress. And it was progress not just for, not just to sit there and say there was bipartisanship, but for the people. I mean, we're talking about being able to give people, $1,200 and, $500 per child in order to combat this. Is that perfect? Is that great? No, but it's more than what was happening before, which was $0. And so I think when we look at those small wins and like I said, you take that concept of big ships turning slowly, somewhere along the way, bipartisanship became a dirty word. And I don't understand that. That just blows my mind, when we look at the current situation.
I think part of the problem is sometimes people don't live in reality. You can't find common ground with someone that is using different alternative facts. I think that is not the majority of people, I should hope. And I think you guys are right to want to find those ways to connect to more conservative thoughts. But I think we have to be careful to not validate some of these things that are just not based in reality.
I fully agree with that. In more ways than one. I had a mentor who once said, trust in God, all else bring data. And for those of us in the IT world, for those of us in the STEM world, that is such a true statement.
Yep.
Roberto, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah.
So I agree with you there that, we have to root out the lies. We have to stick to facts, and not emotion. And that's where I'm talking about. We have to vote the ideologues out. They're not helping us. And, when we are one issue people, or when we are so stuck on one type of ideology, we won't get things done, but we can. And I think the majority of America wants that.
Excellent. So let's narrow down into maybe some specific areas, specific issues. One, you'd mentioned healthcare, obviously, and that's in a lot of people's minds. It has been, and obviously with COVID-19, it continues to be a serious issue in folks' mind. So we've got the Affordable Care Act, which has been seriously crippled by Congress over the past 4 years, 4 or 5 years, cutting funding and trying to dismantle it and trying to throw it out, fortunately failing to throw it out. We have, some candidates that are out there talking about, either strengthening the Affordable Care Act. We've had other candidates talking about, well, let's completely do away with it and, and do healthcare for all and pure public option or pure public healthcare, or is there a public option? Lots of different things on the spectrum out there. I guess I'd like to kind of get an idea of where your head's at, where you think we should maybe be heading when it comes to healthcare in this country.
So I love the idea of healthcare for all. I really do, especially when you're talking about basic healthcare. I've spent a lot of time talking to a lot of different doctors and nurses about this in particular, and it from a baseline perspective, it is a great concept. How we get there. I told you guys earlier, big ships turn slowly. I think that's progress is what we need right now. And so I would tell anybody, I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when you're talking about ACA. I think that it's needed. And when I say I think that it's needed, I believe right now our best option is to have options. There's a couple of ways that can happen. One, the public option, which would be ACA, that allows people to choose. We should not be tied to only hoping that our employers give us the right plan. I'll give you an example. I worked for a company that I changed healthcare 3 times in 1 year. Not by my choice, but by the company's choice. So why should that power not be given to the individual to be able to choose what healthcare is going to work best for them? With that, I think that, we need to be looking at interstate commerce laws when it comes to insurance. Why should insurance company A have a different insurance in say Michigan than they do in Kentucky? I don't understand why that would even be a thing, and why and I travel a lot, or I have traveled a lot in the past. Let me say I don't travel that much anymore, but I travel a lot. Why should I, as a traveling person, not be able to have the same insurance state to state that I would if I were sitting at home or working from home or working, in a stationary place at home? So, we have to go about this a little bit differently. And I will say that one of my biggest issues, honestly, is that we haven't taken this to the insurance companies. They are making money hand over fist on not just businesses, but people. And, at what point do we sit there and say, you're not insuring my life or my health, you're insuring your lifestyle. Yep. So, like I said, I think that we need to have a measured approach to get there. I would love to see healthcare for all. I don't think we can turn on the switch tomorrow. Whatever happens in November, I don't think we can just turn on that switch. I do think we need to have a measured way to get there, and to get this boat turned around for everybody.
Excellent. Appreciate
Excellent. I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
So you're elected to Congress, and there's a vote on whether or not to appoint a special counsel to investigate the Trump administration. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Yes. Well, let me say this. Yes. I think that there are a couple of avenues of which could be looked at. One, I think that we've spent a lot of time talking about the emoluments clause, and I do believe that is one avenue that should be looked at. I'll be frank. Anybody who asks for and revels in international interference in our elections should be looked at. I don't care if you are a Democrat or a Republican. The moment you ask for help or signal for help, I feel as though there is a plausible opportunity for us to look into what's happened there. I honestly think, one of the things that I actually absolutely loved about Barack Obama's presidency was what I felt was a level of transparency that we all felt we were a part of. And in this administration, I feel like it's been clouded with that. Honestly, it's honestly just been clouded with secrecy and with misdirection. And I don't think that is fair to the public. I honestly don't. I don't feel as though, like, Republican or Democrat, I feel like when you can't answer things straight up, we have a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So, kind of switching from domestic issues to more international issues. You had mentioned foreign interference. I guess what do you see Congress's role in? Is Congress's role when it comes to foreign relations and maintaining the relationship with our allies, and when it comes to countries where we have where there's problems and we have interests, how much involvement do you think Congress should have over the executive branch? And I guess how much involvement in general do you think America should have when it comes to countries outside of our immediate neighborhood?
So here first, I believe Congress needs to fully realize its responsibility in the War Powers Act. In particular, we are a government made of 3 equal branches, and it is Congress's responsibility, the Senate and the House, to declare war. And I think we need to own that, regardless of whom the president is. Even after 2001, the Patriot Act, I will be honest with you, has scared the crap out of me since it went into place. I understand why it was put into place, but I also feel as though, the limitless the limitless power that it has provided concerns me. In particular, because now we are surveilling American citizens. I know that sounds like a very Republican thing right there, but we'll stick with it. No, I'll be honest with you. The government has a responsibility to keep us safe, but we have a right to privacy that does need to be respected. And then when we go to, like I said, on an international level, like I said, Congress needs to control, like I said, that the war, acts of war should be passed through Congress appropriately. That is how it was designed. so that one person couldn't throw us into, World War III. I look at, in particular, the Middle East and the war on terrorism. And I have two brothers in the military. I have a sister-in-law in the military, and I have a sister-in-law who is a veteran. And I don't want them going anywhere. At the end of the day, I really don't. I do want an end to those wars, which seem to be endless. I also understand that we cannot create power vacuums across the world. We've seen this happen before, where power vacuums cause people like Russia to be able to jump in and quote unquote save these countries to the detriment of other citizens. We, as the protectors of the free world, and even in our own, even within our own right, that we have, we have solemnly sworn to protect the country from enemies, both domestic and foreign. We have to look at the consequences of that, the short-term gain versus the long-term consequences. And most importantly, in 2021, when we have a new president and we have a new duly elected Congress, and hopefully a Democratic Senate also as well, we have a responsibility to repair those relationships with our allies. While we have been quote unquote protectors of the world and been the military for many people, it's because we can. It's because we are the best. And it's because, we have stepped out on that ledge to say, yeah, we'll take that on. And we can't just leave people hanging. We can't leave our allies hanging in that. We have, a threat to democracy anywhere is a threat to democracy. And we should take that seriously across the board.
Excellent. Appreciate your perspective there. Excuse me. Back on, we'd mentioned the elections and foreign interference. How, I guess, what should we be doing? What do you think we could do as a country to be protecting our election process and making sure that it's more secure?
Well, first off, there's a couple of bills sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk that need to be passed. For some reason or other, he doesn't seem to think that that election security is important. Strange how that works, right? With him in particular, because he also does not believe that we should have, some of our policies here in Kentucky have honestly been led by him when you talk about, voter registration and, voting before election day. We don't have our Kentucky's,
absentee voting.
Yeah, it's Kentucky. Thank you so much. I lost the word right there. Kentucky's absentee voting is crazy to me. And when the guy who's leading the state, who is Mitch McConnell, is saying, I don't want absentee voting because more Democrats will vote. Like, really? Like you're open. You're not even trying to deny it. But I think the first something we need to look at when we look at elections is internally, and that starts with gerrymandering, and that starts with people's ability to vote. We need every single person at the ballot, every single person who matters. You look at it, every single person who can vote should be voting, and we need to fix that. And I think that also fixes the other end of that with, international interference. And I remember in 2016, people were like, oh, well, we intervene in other people's elections too. And I was like, two wrongs don't make a right.
It's okay. We do it too.
Yeah. Okay. But, if it's Ukraine, if it's Russia, I don't care. I don't want them, pulling strings in our election. I don't need Russian bots like I look at it on Twitter and I see, Twitter followers who have zero, they have zero people following them, but, they have little nasty comments to say, and I'm just like, for what it's worth, I don't even know if you're a real person right now or not. They might or might not have a picture. There's a large level of education, I believe, that needs to happen amongst the public, and I think that people are actually starting to understand and feel that. The unfortunate something to that is that there's been a whiplash on the quote-unquote, false media or fake news. But I think as we have to put the information out there, people have to know. People have to understand. And if they take it as false news, then that's a whole different situation than I didn't tell you, and that's where things like the, Information Act, for us to be able to get, classified information declassified is huge for us. So this is I feel like I'm going around in a little bit of a circle here, but I feel like it's a complicated issue when we're talking about our elections. I want everybody to have the most information they could possibly have to make the right decision, and I don't think people need to be bogged down by false information. And I do feel, from an internet, let's talk about the internet's responsibility in this, right? The internet has largely been, unregulated in that, right?
Right.
Give me 15 minutes, I can make Wikipedia say whatever I want it to say.
Yep.
Yeah. There is a responsibility there, though. Just as we treat the media, there is no person I know who went through a school of journalism in college who goes out and actively knows that they're putting out false information. We need to be able to understand the difference between the news and a blog, or the news and an opinion piece. And we have a lot of that going on out there. There's a certain news network that their talking heads are largely opinion pieces, and people take that as the truth. And there's a difference between news and opinion, and we need to have stronger evidence on that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that, and that's something that's been a problem for me for a long time. It used to be very obvious when the news was the news, and when there was an opinion piece or an editorial that was an opinion piece and an editorial as opposed to an investigative piece of journalism.
Yep.
And we've gotten to the point where so much of our news is infused with opinion. And even on channels, no matter what channel you want to pick. I mean, all of the major networks, whether it's Fox or CNN or MSNBC or any of them, so many of the programs on there are to some level opinion, some more heavy than others.
Yeah.
And that's really disturbing. I miss the days of where it was very clear cut. One of the movies I love, Good Night and Good Luck, where it's very clear as, okay, these are the news, this is how it's investigated, these are actual facts. But that comes from a time when we could all actually agree on what facts were.
Correct.
And now we've gotten to this point where we can't even agree on what is fact, what is a fact.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how it's possible to base any rational argument without being able to at least agree on what is a fact.
Agreed. Y'all heard of that COVID-19? Well, Fox is the real pox.
Wow.
And it's not just Fox, though. I mean, you have people like, give you an example, somebody who drives me up a wall, is that Candace Owens.
Oh, my God.
I mean, I don't know if you all are familiar with who she is or not, but she is a very outspoken Black woman who is just lock, stock, and barrel Trump supporter.
Wait, hold on. Hold on, though, Ann. we need to preface that with she wasn't popular until she became a Trump supporter, because before that, she was actually a very anti-Trump person. And then all of a sudden, quote unquote, saw the light and became a Trump supporter, and then became popular because they needed a minority voice. Because we all know, you know, Black women like myself, or minority women like myself, are a monolith. And then here's this woman here, who's bucking the establishment. Hogwash. Hogwash. I'll call her out on that right now. Candace Owens, hogwash.
Yeah, and she's one of the biggest perpetrators online right now. And especially in today's United States society, her vehicle, her main path is Twitter, because of the demographic of people that Twitter reaches, and she is out there just spewing all of this stuff about how the flu is actually worse. She's still talking about, COVID-19. Basically, she doesn't call it a hoax per se anymore, but is saying that, everybody, including Dr. Fauci, is just blowing this way out of proportion, yada, yada, yada. And I sit here and look at the comments and the people follow her. It just absolutely blows my mind that we have as many people as we do in this country who believe that kind of stuff. It's beyond my rational mind to be able to make sense of it.
Anne, I think you hit something very important there when you say your rational mind. And here's... Yeah,
but I mean, there are some, I say that somewhat in jest, only because there are some very intelligent people who believe, all of that garbage. These people who are actually, college educated and things like that. And, let's face it, Thomas Massey is a prime example. You have an MIT grad, and if I'm not, he has 2 degrees, and they're science-based in that they're engineering-driven. They're not in biology, chemistry, or something that you might traditionally think of as science, but they are science-based because of they're in engineering. And here is probably one of the most major proponents of pushing propaganda. And the stuff that he puts out there when it comes things like the deep state, things like, he's directly gone against Andy Bashir, saying that, he was doing fine and then he, overreacted and started closing down businesses, so on and so forth. Thomas Massey, who is also, touching on another subject of yours, currently pushing this idea that we can't do vote by mail or that's the end of the republic. I mean, and by all accounts, he's an intelligent human being. So I sit here when I think about that and I go, okay, so either he's intelligent and he knows what he's doing, and he knows that he's taking advantage of people who are less educated than he is, and who will just take what he says as gospel and not do any kind of due diligence to fact check him, or he really buys into this. And that's where I go back to, this whole rational mind thing. How can you be that well educated and push this stuff? This time in our nation's history, will be one that will go down with big question marks and books everywhere because nobody's going to have an answer for how we got to this.
Are they stupid or evil game?
Wait, hold on. So here's what's important, in my opinion, and I would go with the latter as opposed to the former, honestly. And here's the reason why. Look at his actions versus look at his words. And there's a history of contradiction there in particular. Example, I have a friend of Cole license plate, but I drive a Tesla. And his rationale is because therefore he's getting all of his power from coal as opposed to any other source. Yet strangely, his house is 100% off the grid and solar. So, like I said, look at his words and then look at his actions. I don't doubt that Thomas Massey is actually a very smart person. I do, though, question his sincerity. And I do, though, question what he is feeding people in particular. I have found over the years, and part of the reason why I'm here today is I do not like fear-mongering. I do not like the concept of fear-mongering in action. It creates bullies, and it creates friction. It creates unnecessary friction. And then when you talk about science, here's a person who votes for science yet talks against it on a regular basis. I don't even know how, other than to garner votes from people, I do not understand why one would do that. And I find it a pathetic attempt and grasp at power. And I think people deserve better. I really honestly do think people deserve better. When you are a one-issue person and you push that one issue, even right now, he's pushing, more guns. And I'm not against guns by any means, but when you're pushing more guns because of an apocalyptic issue, I find it to be repugnant, quite frankly. And I think that we deserve better. I think that every single person in this district deserves better. I think we deserve sincerity, and I think that we deserve some real honesty. And I don't know that looking at his words and then his actions that we've gotten a whole lot of that in the past 8 years.
Excellent. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't, it also reminds me of the old saying about somebody who's book smart but has no common sense.
Yeah.
There's some element of that, but it for all appearances' sake, it seems much more devious and intentional. And maybe I'm reading the room wrong, but I agree with you. Looking at actions versus words, that, inspires me even more to question, okay, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
And sadder still, now that we had all this dust up last week, and even Trump came out and publicly blamed him on Twitter, and that's the kiss of death for someone in the Republican Party. You don't want to get on his bad side. And the guy who's running against him in the primary, Tom McMurtry, he actually entered the race specifically stating that Thomas Massey had not been enough of a friend to Trump and that he is the better person to elect because he would be an ardent, Trump supporter and basically do whatever Trump said to do. And I'm just like, when do we get to this point where, the job of an elected official was to, prop up the person above them as opposed to be the voice of the people that they're supposed to represent?
That's crazy, by the way. So the purpose, we literally have 3 branches of government on purpose to prevent exactly just that. 1. 2, the people that are going to vote for that are never going to vote for me. And I say that regardless of whether or not there is a Democratic president or a Republican president. Your job is to vote and to make decisions based off of the people in your district, and not just the people who voted for you, and not just the president who's in office, whether or not that person is in your party or not. And we have to take that seriously. And the concept that we have a quote unquote serious contender to Massey on the Republican ticket based off of that in itself is not democracy at all. You know what? Hang it up. You guys might as well, join Putin and those guys over there. Because what we do know and how we created this government, constitutionally speaking, so everybody out there who's listening about the Constitution, we designed this government so that one person could not have that kind of power. And I think more people need to hear that, know that, or, and grasp that when we're voting for, our elected officials. Like I'm Catholic, and at the end of the day, like we've been told, the Pope is infallible, but to identify a human as being infallible is a very difficult thing for me to do, a very difficult moment for me in particular, and Pope and President are not the same word, just in case anybody's wondering.
Nice. So let's as we start to wrap this up, let's talk a little bit about your campaign. I know with everything going on with social distancing and COVID-19, a lot of campaigns have had to quickly change their strategies for a more virtual bend. I think it might be interesting for folks to hear kind of how your campaign has been affected by that and what you've had to do to change your strategies.
So I'll be honest. Right before this happened, we were about to go very heavy into the field. And obviously the field got cut from knocking on doors to I'll see you on Facebook. And I got to be honest with you, I am so proud of my team. I am elated with their agility. We, as soon as Andy Beshear, I think it was March 7th or 8th, Andy Beshear asked us to basically shelter in place. And we talked about it as a team and, made the decision, let's shift our campaign right now. And they have been great at this. And I couldn't be more proud. Anybody who knows anything about running in a race, state, local, federal, there are some strong, hard, fast rules in an election campaign, and their ability to shift based off of what I asked for, honestly, was amazing. I'm an IT consultant, and so I looked at this as an opportunity, and they grasped that opportunity. I looked at this as an opportunity to say, where can we expand? Where can we grab? Where can we do things differently than other people have done in the past? And that was always kind of part of my vision. But, COVID-19, made us do an about face very quickly and adopt some of those things sooner than we would have. I'm excited about where we're going with that platform, honestly. We'll get back to normal. We will get back to normal eventually. I don't know when that normal would be, but I'm really proud of my team for adopting some of those things. You look at social media, Twitter, Facebook, you look at how people communicate through texting, even from a standpoint of I often don't talk to, my family and friends that, by phone call that much anymore, but I'm a generation of texting. I'm a Zennial. And in case anybody's wondering what a Zennial is, that is not Generation X. That is not Millennial. That is this micro generation right at the end of the 70s and in the early 80s that, was an analog childhood and a digital adulthood. And, we adopted these things rather quickly. And the concept of, old school project management versus in case anybody's wondering, an agile mindset, that agile mindset, it's just been interesting and fun, quite frankly, to meet that challenge today. So without giving away too many of our secrets and without giving away too many of the things that we're doing, it's been real. It's been fun. I'll be honest with you.
Excellent. So the primaries has been changed. It's coming up June 23rd, right?
Yep.
Okay. And if our listeners want to find out more information about you, where can they find that?
So first off, thank you guys for having me here today. Fabert 2020. Remember that Fabert2020.org is where you can find more information about my platform online. Fabert 2020. Fabert 2020 all over the place here. Fabert 2020 on Facebook and on Twitter is how you can follow us. And guys, we're up against a deadline right now. March 31st is our first big quarterly deadline. And any and all contributions. If you go to Act Blue, you can find me on Fabert for Congress and also Unbridled. Because here's what we're doing here in Kentucky. The Unbridled Blue Wave is a thing. And it is going to happen in Kentucky because you know what? We have opportunities. We have Yarmouth already in office. We have Andy Bashir already in office. We are primed right here in the 4th and in the 6th district to turn blue. Because people are ready for somebody to go to Congress who's going to fight for them every single day. We are tired of being 44th, 45th, 43rd, 46th, 47th, on down the list. We are ready and we are primed to be at the top as Kentuckians across the board.
Great.
So, very easy. Fabert 2020. Come join me.
Great. I'll put those in the show notes. So if you download our podcast, you can see those in the show notes. I'll have those. I'll have the website there and the tags, the social tags as well. So thank you so much for joining us today, Shannon. We really appreciate it.
Shannon.
Absolutely. You guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys providing this type of platform for me and any other person who's running. There is so much value in us being able to just sit down and talk. And I sincerely mean that. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And good luck.
Good luck, Shannon.
Thank you guys.
Shannon.
Thanks, y'all.
That's going to about wrap it up for this week's Left in Kentucky. Thanks again to Shannon Fabert for being on today. And we look forward to our next episode next week, where we'll have Jason Stroud on. Jason is running against Damon Thayer here in Kentucky in the Kentucky Senate. So we look forward to hearing from him. And until
Woohoo!
Yeah, I love Jason.
So between now and then, hopefully everybody stays well and healthy, and
Stay home.
Keep your hands clean. Keep washing, and keep listening.
Bye, everybody.
Share our podcast, Left in Kentucky, with all your friends, and we'll talk to you next week. Until then, this is Roberto Enriquez.
Amy Ferguson.
And Dickerson.
Left in Kentucky, the podcast of Indivisible Northern Kentucky.